My brother hated me for being loved, until I found out what he did behind my back. I always thought having an older brother would be a blessing, that he'd protect me, teach me stuff, and look out for me the way older siblings are supposed to. But from as early as I can remember, Ethan looked at me like I didn't belong. I was 3 when he pushed me off a swing and told Mom I slipped. I was 5 when he hid my favorite stuffed animal and told me it had run away because I was annoying. At 7, I wrote him a birthday card and put my allowance in it. He ripped it in front of me and threw it in the trash. Still, I tried. Because that's what little brothers do, right? We idolize. We forgive. We hope. I hoped that one day, he'd finally smile at me the way he smiled at his friends. I hoped that maybe, if I just stayed out of his way, he'd stop hating me. But hate was the only language he spoke when it came to me. It didn't matter that I never tried to outshine him. It didn't matter that I begged my parents not to go to my school play so they could go to his soccer game instead. Ethan decided, long before I could understand why, that I was the enemy. He was the firstborn, the one with the messy curls and serious eyes. He was quiet, observant, smart in a way that was hard to explain. But the moment I was born, the attention shifted. I was the baby, the miracle, the second chance. Mom nearly died giving birth to me, and in a weird, twisted way, I think that sealed my fate. To everyone else, Ethan was introverted. To me, he was a storm with a smile. He never hit me in front of our parents. He was smarter than that. But the mind games? The manipulations? That was his playground. He'd gaslight me into thinking I broke things he'd destroyed. He'd whisper cruel things to me when no one was around, then look confused when I burst into tears at the dinner table. When I got into the school orchestra, he told me, "Don't get too proud. They probably just felt bad for you." When I got straight A's, he'd say, "Wow, you must have cheated. You're not smart, just lucky." The worst part? My parents never noticed. They thought Ethan was just struggling emotionally. "He's sensitive," Mom would say. "He's under pressure," Dad would add. But I was under pressure too. I was living in a house where love came with conditions, and my brother made sure I never forgot it. When I was 14, Ethan was 17. He got into a huge argument with Dad over college, something about wanting to go to art school instead of following the family plan. That night, he took a razor to his sketchbook and sliced every single drawing he'd ever made. He blamed me, said I'd gone through his stuff, said I was trying to ruin his future. I hadn't even been in his room. Still, I got grounded. For a month. Because Ethan cried in front of our parents, and I didn't know how to cry like that. The thing about trauma is, it teaches you to doubt your own memories. I started wondering if maybe I was the problem. Maybe I was selfish. Maybe I did ruin things without realizing it. But then, the college letters came. I had worked my ass off, studied every night, joined clubs, took AP classes, volunteered. When I got accepted into Ridgeview University, our dream school, I was ecstatic. Ethan wasn't. He barely looked at the letter, just mumbled, "Congrats," and walked away. That night, I found my laptop in the bathtub. My college acceptance letter was torn into pieces, floating in the toilet. My trophies were smashed. My clothes slashed. I sat on the floor, surrounded by the wreckage of everything I had worked for, and I finally felt it. Not sadness, not anger, just exhaustion. I had tried so hard to earn his love, to be a good brother, to prove I was worth something. And I realized, I didn't have to. I didn't have to keep sacrificing pieces of myself for someone who only saw me as a threat. So I made a choice. For years, I had been saving evidence. Screenshots, voicemails, pictures, every cruel message, every destroyed item, every silent scream. I compiled it all, put it on a USB, and sat my parents down. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just showed them. My mom went pale. My dad went quiet. They watched as 5 years of denial unraveled before their eyes. They saw their perfect firstborn son for what he truly was. A deeply broken, angry person who took it all out on his little brother. There was a confrontation, a lot of yelling, and then silence. The next morning, Ethan was gone. He left a note. "I was never enough. Not for you. Not for them. And especially not with him around. Don't pretend like you didn't win." I didn't see him for 7 years. I moved away, went to college, built a life, went to therapy. And still, some nights, I'd wake up with phantom guilt. Like I'd betrayed him. Like I deserved what he did. Then, last winter, I got a package in the mail. No name, no address, just a photo album. Inside were pictures of us, Ethan and me, as kids, smiling, playing, my arm around him, his smile stiff, like he was trying. And in the back, a letter. "I hated you, not because of who you were, but because of what you reminded me of. I saw the love they gave you and wondered why I wasn't enough to get it too. I didn't know how to ask for help. And by the time I realized how badly I'd hurt you, I was too far gone. I'm sorry. I wish I had been the brother you needed. Maybe in another life." I cried hard, not just for the pain, but for the years we both spent drowning in silence. For the truth neither of us knew how to speak until it was already too late. I didn't write him back, not immediately, but eventually, I did, not with an apology, not with blame. Just the truth. You hurt me. Deeply. And I carried that hurt for a long time. But I also understand now. You were hurting too, that I don't know if we can ever be brothers again. But I hope you find peace. And I hope, wherever life takes you, you learn to love the boy you once were. The one I always hoped to meet. I never got a response. Maybe he couldn't bring himself to write one. Maybe he thought he'd already said too much. Maybe that was his peace, letting go. A few years later, I got word from my mother that Ethan had passed. Some kind of seizure in his sleep. Quiet, sudden, final. I didn't go to the funeral. Not because I was angry, but because I had already said goodbye long ago. Instead, I went to the old lake we used to visit as kids. Sat on the dock, threw a photo of us into the water, and I whispered, "I forgive you, not because you earned it, but because I no longer want to carry you like a wound." I looked up at the sky, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like the broken brother. I felt whole. That here's what I've learned. Sometimes, people will hurt you because they never learned how to love themselves. Sometimes, they'll turn your light into their shadow. Sometimes, they'll carve their pain into your back and call it justice. But none of that defines you. You get to choose who you become. You get to choose healing. You get to choose peace. And if you're lucky, maybe one day, you'll look at your scars and say, "I survived you. And I made something beautiful out of the ashes." That's what I did. And I hope, wherever Ethan is, he finally found that peace too.